"Becky, who's the man in the doorway?" Rebecca Torres froze. Her sister's voice was shaking. They were on the phone, both watching the same video. Emma's 7th birthday party, uploaded 3 days ago. A simple home movie. Pink balloons, cake, 12 kids screaming through musical chairs. But there, behind her daughter in the kitchen, half hidden in shadow, a figure, pale, motionless, staring. Rebecca rewound the footage. The figure appeared in 3 separate clips, always in the background, always watching. She checked the guest list. Every parent, every child accounted for. Her husband swore the doors were locked all day. The neighbors saw nothing. But the video doesn't lie. For 6 seconds, spread across 20 minutes, someone had been inside their Connecticut home during her daughter's birthday party. Someone uninvited. Someone who never moved. Someone no one noticed until the video was uploaded to YouTube. Rebecca's hands trembled as she checked the raw footage. The figure was clearer than she wanted to admit. Dark clothing, shoulders squared, and in one frame, just one, the hand was raised, as if waving. The police would later find something in the basement. 2 words scratched in the dust behind old boxes, words that made Rebecca's blood run cold. If you've ever felt watched in your own home, you need to hear what happened next. Hit that like button and subscribe, because this case gets darker than anyone expected. Rebecca Torres was not someone who spooked easily. A dental hygienist by trade and a mother of 2, she lived a measured, predictable life in Fairfield, Connecticut, a zip code known more for soccer practice and farmers markets than unexplained phenomena. Her husband, Daniel, worked in insurance. Their daughter, Emma, was 7, obsessed with Hannah Montana and cartwheel competitions. Their son, Luke, was 4 and still learning to tie his shoes. The Torres family was, by every observable metric, unremarkable. April 17th, 2010, was Emma's birthday. Rebecca had spent the week planning. She ordered a strawberry cake from the bakery on Post Road, hung streamers in the living room, and created a playlist of Radio Disney hits. 12 children arrived that Saturday afternoon, a controlled chaos of sugar and screaming that any parent would recognize. Daniel manned the camera, a Canon Vixia, purchased specifically for occasions like this. The plan was simple: capture the highlights, edit them into a 5-minute keepsake, and email the link to grandparents in Florida. The party itself was textbook. Musical chairs, pin the tail on the donkey. Emma, wearing a purple dress with butterfly clips in her hair, beamed as she opened presents in the living room. At 4:30, Rebecca gathered everyone in the kitchen for cake. Candles were lit. Voices sang off-key. Emma closed her eyes, wished for something she'd never tell, and blew. Daniel filmed it all from the opposite side of the table, his angle capturing Emma's face, the cake, and the doorway to the hallway behind her. No one saw anything unusual. Not then. Rebecca uploaded the raw footage to her laptop that evening after the guests left. She used Windows Movie Maker, nothing fancy, to trim dead air and stitch together the best moments. The editing took an hour. She exported the video, uploaded it as an unlisted YouTube file, and sent the link to family. Daniel watched it once on his phone, smiled, and went to bed. Rebecca did the same. It was a good day. A normal day. Then her sister called. Monica lived in New Haven, 30 minutes away. She'd watched the video Tuesday morning while drinking coffee before work. She replayed it twice before calling. "Becky, I don't want to freak you out," she said, "but there's someone in the background during the cake part, behind Emma, in the hallway." Rebecca laughed it off initially. Monica had always been prone to paranoia. She checked locks twice, avoided horror movies, once convinced herself a mannequin in a store window was moving. But Monica insisted. "I'm serious. Pause it at 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Look at the doorway." Rebecca opened her laptop, found the timestamp, pressed pause. The figure was barely visible at first glance, A shadow, maybe, or a trick of afternoon light, filtering through the window at the end of the hall. But the longer Rebecca stared, the more defined it became. A person, standing just beyond the threshold of the kitchen, half hidden by the doorframe. Pale. Still. The face obscured by video compression and distance, but the outline was human. Shoulders, head, arms, hanging at the sides. Rebecca's stomach tightened. She rewound 10 seconds. The figure wasn't there. Fast-forwarded. 5 seconds. Still there. She checked the next clip, Emma opening a present in the living room. The camera panned left briefly, catching the same hallway. The figure was there again, in nearly the same position. She checked a third clip. Musical chairs. The camera faced the opposite direction toward the front windows. But in one brief pan across the room, the hallway appeared again in the background. The figure was there, motionless, always motionless. Rebecca called Daniel upstairs. They watched together in silence. He checked the doors. Both had been locked during the party. He remembered because a late-arriving parent had to knock. The windows were shut. The back gate was latched. No one had entered the house uninvited, but someone had been there. Rebecca couldn't sleep that night. She kept returning to the simplest explanation. Someone had been invited, and she'd forgotten. Memory is fallible, especially during the controlled chaos of a children's party. She retrieved the guest list from her email. 12 kids, 11 parents who stayed, 1 grandmother. She cross-referenced names with faces she remembered. Everyone accounted for. She even checked the RSVP list for parents who'd declined. None had changed their minds. Daniel suggested a neighbor might have stopped by. The Kellys next door sometimes dropped off mail delivered to the wrong address. But Rebecca checked the doorbell footage. They'd installed a Ring camera 3 months earlier. No one had rung the bell between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. except arriving guests, all of whom she recognized. The back door, which led to the deck, had no camera. She made a note to check with the Kellys anyway. Wednesday morning, Rebecca called Monica back. Could it be a reflection? Maybe the TV was on in the living room and it's bouncing off something? Monica was skeptical but agreed to look again. They set up a video call, both watching the footage simultaneously. Rebecca narrated as the clip played. Okay, here's Emma leaning over the cake. Candles are lit. Daniel's filming from here. She pointed at the screen. And that's the hallway entrance behind her. Monica interrupted. Pause. Right there. Rebecca froze the frame. The figure was clearer than she remembered, standing just inside the shadow of the hallway. The posture was wrong for a reflection, too three-dimensional, too solid. Becky, that's a person. Look at the shoulders. That's not glass glare. Rebecca's chest tightened. She advanced the video frame by frame. The figure didn't move for 6 continuous seconds. Completely still. Not the stillness of someone casually watching, but the rigid, unnatural stillness of someone trying not to be noticed, or someone who didn't need to move. The thought made her nauseous. She decided to involve Daniel more directly. That evening, they sat together at the kitchen table with the laptop between them. Rebecca had created a timeline. The figure appeared in 3 clips, spanning roughly 20 minutes of real time. Clip 1, musical chairs in the living room, 3:47 p.m. Clip 2, Emma blowing out candles in the kitchen, 4:31 p.m. Clip 3, present opening in the living room, 4:52 p.m. In each instance, the hallway was visible in the background. In each instance, the figure was there. Daniel proposed a test. Let's recreate the lighting. Same time of day, same camera angle. Maybe it's a coat on a hook casting a shadow. Rebecca agreed, though she didn't believe it. Saturday afternoon, they returned to the kitchen at 4:30, the exact time the cake footage was shot. Daniel stood where he'd stood while filming. Rebecca positioned herself in the hallway where the figure had appeared. The result was conclusive. When Rebecca stood in that spot, she was fully visible, not shadowy, not obscured. The April sunlight streaming through the window at the hallway's end illuminated her clearly. The compression artifacts Daniel's camera created didn't blur her face into abstraction. She looked like herself. The figure in the video looked like something else. Maybe someone was crouching, Daniel offered, or leaning against the wall in a way that made them look taller. Rebecca walked to the hallway, tried multiple positions. Nothing matched. The door frame would obscure more of a person's body if they stood flush to the wall. The figure in the video was centered, visible, upright. By Sunday, Rebecca had watched the clips more than 30 times. She'd begun to notice smaller details. The figure's clothing appeared dark, possibly black or deep gray. The head seemed slightly too large for the body, though that could be distortion. And in one frame, just one during the present opening clip, the figure's hand seemed to be raised slightly, palm facing outward, as if waving. Rebecca stopped uploading family videos after that. The birthday clip remained unlisted on YouTube, but she couldn't bring herself to delete it. Evidence, she told herself, though she wasn't sure for what. Daniel thought she was overthinking, a reasonable conclusion given her spiraling obsession, but he didn't push. He'd seen the footage himself. He couldn't explain it either. By mid-May, Rebecca had contacted 3 people: a video forensics expert she found through a freelancer website, a local paranormal investigator whose blog she'd stumbled across, and a retired Fairfield police detective named Raymond Poole, who now ran a private investigation firm. The forensics expert charged $200 to examine the footage. His report arrived via email. No evidence of post-production tampering. Figure appears to be physically present in the frame. Recommend checking for intruders or reviewing security footage from the date in question. The paranormal investigator, a woman named Diane, visited the house. She walked through the hallway with an EMF reader, took temperature readings, and asked Rebecca if anyone had died in the home. No one had. The house was built in 1998. Public records showed 3 previous owners, all alive. Diane left after an hour, offering vague reassurances about residual energy, but admitting she detected nothing unusual. She didn't charge a fee. Raymond Poole was different. He arrived Thursday afternoon in a gray sedan, dressed in slacks and a collared shirt, carrying a leather notebook. He was in his 60s, square-jawed, with the deliberate manner of someone who'd spent decades listening to people lie. Rebecca showed him the video. He watched it twice without speaking, then asked to see the house layout. Rebecca walked him through each room. Poole took notes. He measured the hallway, checked sightlines, examined the back door lock. "You said the Ring camera didn't catch anyone entering?" Rebecca nodded. "But the back door doesn't have a camera." Another nod. Poole crouched by the door, inspecting the frame. "Lock's intact. No scratches." "Was this door open during the party?" "No," Rebecca said. "We kept it shut. The kids were playing inside." Poole stood, brushing off his knees. "But you didn't check it during the party." Rebecca hesitated. She hadn't. "So, someone could have entered before the party, hidden, and left afterward without you noticing." The thought paralyzed her. She'd assumed the figure had appeared impossibly. A glitch. A ghost. Something beyond explanation. The idea that a stranger had been physically inside her home, hiding in plain sight, was somehow worse. "But where would they hide?" she asked. "We were all over the house." Poole pointed upstairs. "Storage? Attic? Basement?" The Torres home had all 3. Rebecca felt her pulse quicken. The basement was unfinished, mostly used for holiday decorations and old furniture. The attic was accessible through a pull-down ladder in the hallway ceiling, the same hallway where the figure had appeared. They checked the attic first. Poole climbed the ladder with a flashlight. Dust covered the plywood floor, undisturbed except for a single set of Rebecca's footprints from months earlier when she'd retrieved Christmas lights. No one had been up there recently. The basement was similarly untouched. Cobwebs in the corners, boxes stacked neatly, a faint smell of mildew. Poole descended the basement stairs slowly, shining his light into corners. "You keep the door locked?" Rebecca shook her head. "They rarely use the basement. The door from the kitchen stayed shut but not locked. Poole knelt by a stack of boxes near the far wall, angling his flashlight. "This moved recently." Rebecca stepped closer. The boxes, filled with old textbooks from Daniel's college years, had shifted slightly. The dust pattern on the floor beneath them was uneven, as if they'd been slid aside and repositioned. Poole pulled the stack forward. Behind it, the concrete wall had a thin, horizontal crack, and scratched into the dust on the floor, barely visible, were 2 words: "Happy birthday." Rebecca called the police immediately. 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes, a younger patrolman named Officer Delgado and a senior detective named Hirsch. Rebecca showed them the basement, the video, the message in the dust. Hirsch photographed everything, took statements from both Rebecca and Daniel, and arranged for a forensic team to sweep the house the following day. The forensic sweep found nothing actionable. No fingerprints on the basement boxes, no DNA evidence, no signs of forced entry. The message in the dust was real, but dust doesn't hold prints well. The handwriting analysis, done by comparing the scratched letters to samples from Rebecca, Daniel, and even the neighbors, yielded no matches. Whoever had written it had either disguised their handwriting or had no existing samples on file. Detective Hirsch returned Friday morning with a theory. "We've seen cases like this before. Someone with access to your home, maybe a contractor, a house cleaner, a repair person, returns later without permission. They know the layout. They know your schedule. It's usually someone who's been inside before." Rebecca and Daniel compiled a list. A plumber had fixed the upstairs toilet in February. A painter had touched up the living room in March. A handyman had installed shelves in the garage in January. The Kellys' teenage son had fed their cat during a weekend trip in December. Hirsch ran background checks on each. The plumber had a clean record. The painter had a DUI from 2003, nothing recent. The handyman had no criminal history. The Kellys' son was 17, no record. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Rebecca's mother, who'd attended the party, called Sunday evening. "I was looking through the photos I took that day," she said. "I think I saw someone in one of them." She texted the photo. It showed Emma and 3 friends playing in the living room, taken around 4:15. The hallway was visible in the background, slightly out of focus, and there, just barely, was the figure, standing in the same position, same posture. But this photo revealed something the video hadn't. The figure was wearing a jacket, dark, possibly navy blue or black, and on the left breast pocket, partially visible even through the blur, was a small white logo, rectangular. Rebecca zoomed in until the pixels fractured. It could have been a name tag or a company patch. Hirsch enhanced the image using police software. The resolution was still poor, but he could make out 3 letters, ALE, possibly part of a longer word. Rebecca cross-referenced the contractors. The handyman's company was called Reliable Home Services. The logo on his uniform included the letters RELIABLE arranged in a rectangular patch. His name was Thomas Worth, 42 years old. He'd installed garage shelves in January and had Daniel's approval to return in April to measure for additional work in the basement, a project Daniel had ultimately canceled. Rebecca didn't remember him being at the house on the day of the party, but she'd been distracted, busy with guests, and Thomas had the code to the back gate. Detective Hirsch brought Thomas in for questioning Monday afternoon. Thomas denied everything. He claimed he'd measured the basement in early April, weeks before the party, and hadn't returned since. His alibi for April 17th was thin, home alone, no witnesses, but not impossible. Hirsch couldn't arrest him without evidence. Rebecca obtained Thomas's social media profiles. His Facebook was sparse, mostly photos of fishing trips and barbecues, but one photo, posted March 2010, stopped her cold. Thomas, standing in front of his truck, wearing the company uniform, the logo visible, the same posture, the same build, and in the comments section, a single exchange. A friend had written, "You still doing that side gig?" Thomas had replied, "Yeah, keeps me busy, lots of houses, lots of keys." Rebecca forwarded the screenshot to Hirsch. The investigation officially became a criminal case. Thomas Wirth had been inside the Torres home. The question was no longer if he'd been there during the party. It was why. Thomas Wirth's home was searched on May 23rd under a warrant issued by a Connecticut Superior Court judge. Detectives found a locked filing cabinet in his garage containing photocopied house keys labeled by address. 17 addresses. The Torres home was among them. Also recovered. A laptop with folders of photographs, exterior shots of homes, some interior shots taken from doorways and windows, and a subfolder labeled parties. Inside were images from 5 different events, all taken surreptitiously from hallways, staircases, or partially open doors. None of the images showed children in distress. None were overtly illegal. But the pattern was clear. Thomas had been attending events uninvited, documenting them, and leaving without detection. Hirsch described it as a compulsion, voyeuristic, unsettling, but difficult to prosecute without direct evidence of intent to harm. The Torres birthday video was not on Thomas's laptop. Hirsch theorized that Thomas had deleted it or stored it elsewhere. A deeper forensic dive recovered metadata from the laptop's deleted files folder. Among the fragments, a video file titled Torres April 17, 2010.move, deleted on April 25th, 8 days after the party. The file itself was unrecoverable, overwritten by other data. Thomas was charged with criminal trespass, possession of burglary tools, and voyeurism, a misdemeanor in Connecticut. His lawyer argued that the keys were for legitimate work purposes and that Thomas had inadvertently remained in homes after completing jobs. The prosecution argued intent, pointing to the parties folder and the pattern of behavior. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Rebecca testified, describing the basement message, the video figure, the violation of her family's safety. Thomas's lawyer cross-examined her, suggesting the video figure could have been a guest she'd forgotten or a reflection misinterpreted. The forensic expert testified that the figure was physically present. Diane, the paranormal investigator, testified that she'd found no evidence of supernatural activity, a strategic move by the prosecution to eliminate alternative explanations. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Thomas Wirth was found guilty of criminal trespass and voyeurism, acquitted of burglary tools possession. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison and 5 years probation. The judge called his behavior predatory and disturbing, though she noted the absence of physical harm or evidence of intent to harm. Rebecca attended every day of the trial. She needed to see him, needed to understand what had driven a man to stand in her hallway, motionless, watching her daughter blow out candles. During sentencing, Thomas was given an opportunity to address the court. He declined. He never explained why he'd done it. He never apologized. After the trial, Rebecca learned more about Thomas through a victim impact coordinator. Thomas had been adopted as a child, raised in 3 different foster homes. He'd worked in home services for 20 years, building a reputation for reliability, but never forming lasting relationships. A court-appointed psychologist testified that Thomas exhibited traits consistent with voyeuristic disorder, a need to observe without being observed, to feel present in others' lives without participating. Rebecca tried to find meaning in that diagnosis. She couldn't. The clinical language didn't erase the image of him standing in her hallway, watching. It didn't erase the message he'd scratched into the basement dust. Happy birthday. Not a threat. Not a taunt. Just acknowledgement. As if he'd been a guest. As if he'd belonged. The Torres family moved in November 2010 to a different neighborhood. New house, new locks, new security system with cameras covering every entrance. Emma, now 8, didn't remember the party clearly. She'd been too young, too distracted by cake and presents. Luke didn't remember at all. Daniel rarely spoke about it, but Rebecca couldn't forget. She kept the birthday video, not on YouTube. She deleted the upload, but on an external hard drive, locked in a drawer. Sometimes, late at night, she'd rewatch it. Not the moments with Thomas visible, but the moments without him. Emma's laughter, the candles glowing, the friends singing, proof that for most of the party, everything had been normal. 3 years after Thomas Worth's conviction, Rebecca received a letter. It arrived at her new address, forwarded from the old one, postmarked from a correctional facility in Enfield, Connecticut. The return address listed Thomas's inmate number. Rebecca stared at it for a week before opening it. The letter was handwritten, 2 pages, careful block letters. Thomas wrote that he'd been attending therapy, mandatory as part of his sentence, and his counselor had encouraged him to write to his victims. Not for forgiveness, the letter clarified, but for closure. He explained, in clinical, detached language, that he'd begun entering homes during parties after a job in 2007. A client had hosted a children's birthday party while he'd been installing a ceiling fan upstairs. He'd heard the laughter, the chaos, the warmth of it. He'd stopped working and listened. "I never had that," he wrote. "I never went to birthday parties as a kid. I never had friends over. I never felt like I was part of something." The letter continued. Thomas described how he'd started returning to clients' homes during events, always uninvited, always hidden, always watching. He claimed he never intended to harm anyone. He just wanted to feel what it was like to be inside those moments, even if he wasn't truly part of them. "I know what I did was wrong," he wrote. "I know I scared you. I know I violated your family's safety. I didn't think about that then. I only thought about what I was missing." The letter ended with a single line. "I'm sorry I was there. I wish I'd been invited instead." Rebecca folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. She never responded. Daniel suggested shredding it, but Rebecca kept it. Not because she forgave Thomas, she didn't, but because it answered the question that had haunted her since seeing the figure in the video. Why? The answer wasn't satisfying. It was human, broken, pathetic. Thomas Worth wasn't a monster. He was a deeply damaged man who'd made monstrous choices. That didn't excuse what he'd done, but it explained it. An explanation, Rebecca realized, was sometimes all you could get. In 2014, Rebecca attended a victim advocacy conference in Hartford. She met other families who'd experienced similar invasions, hidden cameras in rental properties, strangers attending funerals uninvited, voyeurs filming through windows. She shared her story, the birthday video, the basement message. A woman in the audience asked, "Do you still celebrate your daughter's birthday?" Rebecca said yes. They celebrated every year, always at home, always with the same traditions. Cake, candles, singing. But now they checked every room beforehand, locked every door, installed cameras. "We won't let him take that from us," Rebecca said. The room applauded. Emma is 21 now, a college student studying psychology. She knows the story. Rebecca told her when she turned 16, old enough to understand. Emma watched the video once, saw the figure in the hallway, and asked, "Did he hurt anyone?" Rebecca said no. Emma nodded. "Then we're okay." Luke, now 18, has no memory of the party. He knows the details, but they're abstract to him, something that happened to someone else. Rebecca envies that distance. Daniel still works in insurance. Rebecca still works in dental hygiene. They've lived in the new house for 14 years. Thomas Worth was released in 2013 after serving his sentence. Rebecca doesn't know where he is now. She doesn't check. She doesn't want to know. But sometimes, late at night, Rebecca thinks about the letter, about a man who wanted so badly to belong that he inserted himself into strangers' lives without permission, about the space between loneliness and harm, about how invisibility can be both a symptom and a choice, and she thinks about the message in the dust. "Happy birthday. Not a threat, just the echo of someone who'd spent his entire life standing in doorways, watching others celebrate what he'd never had. Present, but never invited. Seen, but only after he was gone.